Isaac says, I want to see Facecheck answers the comments as a stream in one of these downtime periods. What do you think this is, homie? Plus, Dom and LS wouldn't be able to handle all of the fantastic ideas that you guys have. Hello, welcome to dGon versus commenters for Facecheck episode 14, which also could be Facecheck answers the comments. It's basically the same thing. Isaac got a ton of feedback from you guys this week, so let's get to it. 2 comments about our title. Papega Clapper, nice name, homie, said, VENN, I want the most clickbait title possible. Editor, say no more, fam. And Nady said, I read the title and I had to stop everything and watch this banger. Now, we kind of knew that this was going to be the title of the episode coming into it, because in our pre-chat on our Discord, when Dom, LS, and I were trying to figure out, hey, what's the angle that we're taking with it, Dom came up with his idea. He's like, actually, I don't want to, ruffle your feathers too much. He said something like that. Maybe he didn't say exactly that. But I think T1 is the TSM of the LCK. And LS hit him with the, oh boy, okay. And I was like, all right, wait, please, save it for the episode. We already know how this is gonna go. Everything else that we do today will be getting us to that point. And look, you guys are watching. Bakil Turkit said, why do I watch a show? I just feel depressed and hopeless about NA every time I finish. Crying emojis. Yeah, that's how Dom and LS feel. But they've got to sum up the power and courage to make an episode about it and every week. So, that's what I'm here for. I'm here to balance it out. NA is great. Definitely is gonna be the savior of North America. It's gonna be great, guys. Like, right? That's why we keep watching, right? It's gonna be great, right? Marur Balint, hopefully I said that right, sorry homie, said, man, 100 Thieves robs EU of its talent and Tommy of all of his gold stars. Someone get Officer Cadril. I like this move by 100 Thieves. If you don't think Ryoma or Damonte is the answer, then you gotta do something, and I cannot stress how difficult it is to make a mid-season move that doesn't break the bank. And in their case, it did. It was 1 million euros to make that move to Schalke, reportedly. When I was at Golden Guardians, we had to make the move to move on from High because the team made the decision that High wasn't the answer there. And it's not like Liquid Steve deals out cheap when we made the move for the academy player, Mickey. So getting a in a major region to come over and fill that spot is going to be an interesting move there. And yeah, I guess it remains to be seen what is going to happen with Ryoma. David Albero says, what happened with Faker was that he couldn't play Azir and it was huge in the meta. I don't remember if he benched himself, but there is a video of him talking about the whole thing and how he just spammed Azir like crazy so he could come back. Yeah, that was the Easyhoon era. Thank you for that clarification. We talked about it, couldn't fully remember if he benched himself, but I wouldn't be surprised if Koma was the one that pulled the plug on that. And again, one of the reasons why Koma is one of the greatest coaches of all time in League of Legends. He's been willing to make the call and gamble. A lot of those gambles paid off. In this case, with Azir, paid off and then made money for the organization as Easyhoon got those big bucks over at Beachy Gaming, being one of the major players during the LPL exodus, or LCK exodus of players heading over to the LPL after the big payday. Anime Impact says, they talk about Ryoma or Damonte staying, I guess they is us, when their contracts, wrong there, are through the year, so money has nothing to do with the choice. I'd assume they try to sell Damonte for as little as possible, and keep Ryoma since he's younger, and then after Summer Split, I would assume that they would then replace whoever stays with a new mid. All right, Anime Impact, there's a lot of takes in here. You need more theirs in there. Be better, use the right there. There, and there. There is the correct one. Also, I think you meant to say you assumed to sell Damonte for as much as possible, because if you tried to sell him for as little as possible, you could sell him for $1, right? Like, yes, so you would try to get as much as you can out of whichever player that you decide is the best. I would go with Damonte. Like, Damonte gives you a very distinct play style, and Damonte gives you that North American spot. Yes, I know Ryoma also is a North American spot, but you've already seen what Ryoma brings. It's the mage play that just isn't up to snuff yet. And so maybe it's like, oh, well, that's the kind of player that we want, and we'll take that player that's lesser. Or do you want a player that is greater at what they do? Which is what Damonte does, right? He's the one that transfers his skill set and transfers his lead to the other team. and then falls into a deficit himself. But if the team then just starts team fighting after that, then they find success there. It was what he was doing over at Clutch Gaming as well, where they had the fabled 10-minute Herald play over and over again. So I think you keep Damonte. I don't think you keep Ryoma there. And Ryoma's had multiple chances to solidify his spot as the starter and just hasn't. So you got Abadage, you're just riding that horse all the way through. Furcho says, I saw the LPL finals live and I gotta say, Dr. I Will Dominate was onto something when he recommended to LS to watch LPL for a healthier lifestyle. That final was a banger. It was a lot of fun. And the coolest part is that you're seeing how teams are trying to checkmate each other and then make plays against that, right? We talked about it on the episode, it feels like LCK is like, oh, we're checkmating you. And then the team that is losing is like, oh, they're checkmating us, there's not anything we do. LPL are just like fighting their way out of different situations. They're taking a knight and using it like a queen, and people are like, instead of being like, hey, you can't do that, the other team's like, all right, fine, I'm gonna take my pawn and like punch your king in the face, game over, right? They just scrap and scrap, and it's just a lot of fun to see it at the pace that they do it. They do it so quickly, and again, Gala being in the right place, right time, multiple times for RNG has been a lot of fun. Nuguri just 1v4ing multiple times on the top side of the map. It almost felt like he was 2v8ing with Doinb. It's just a pleasure to watch, and now getting more visibility because of the broadcast. Plus, the casters did a great job bringing the excitement as well. So overall, it was a lot of fun to watch that LPL final. Scott Gill, fan of the show, friend of the show. On the subject of extra man rosters, do you support such an idea, and what game role and team role would you rather see taking the extra man? Shot calling, carrying, miscellaneous utility? I like this question. I think that you could probably have 1 to maybe 2 people swap in and out. I think the LPL's been doing that for a very long time. I know in the LCK, they've always had these expanded rosters, not just what we talked about with T1, where they had 7 or 8 different starting lineups. I think it was like 6 or 7 different starting lineups, but they still want to find their core 5, right? And I like what they did there, but it was a lot of tinkering. I think you look at kind of like, again, what 100 Thieves had, right? If you wanted mage play, you go there and use Ryoma. If you wanted to accentuate the other lanes that you had, then you go with Damonte. But I think you look at support. I know for a little while there was, I think it was Big and, who was the other support that was there? I think Optic had Big and Gate when they were playing with Arrow, I believe. And they both had different strengths and weaknesses. And maybe one of them is an enchanter, mage type support. One of them is an engaged tank type support. You want to have someone that has the flexibility to play all of it, but not everyone's going to be Faker or Xiaohu, who is now playing in the top side of the map and has all of his mid lane pool plus the top laners that are meta in his pocketbooks over for RNG. So I think that is why it's helpful. Also, it just requires a mentality shift. I think because League used to be, hey, it's just these star 5 players, maybe 6 if you count Easyhoon during the World Championship run for SKT. People are just used to like, hey, it's these guys and that's it. But in so many sports around the world, there's always like these roster swaps, or hey, there's a reason why there's a 6th man award in basketball. Lou Williams for the Clippers has won that over and over again. But I think in League, it also requires a mentality shift. If you get benched or there's utility that someone does that better, it takes a certain amount of humility to accept that, right? Can you work on it? Sure, but it's probably better to continue to accentuate those things that you're great at already. So until there's a mentality shift between the players and coaches are able to get players to buy into that, I just don't think that's gonna happen here in North America. Okay, Greg. Hi, Greg. He says, I'm just hoping for one day that Chovy and Nuguri go to T1 and become the first team to win all 4 major trophies. It pains me to see Faker retire, but I hope he just don't get benched / self-benched in summer. All right, we might be going a little overboard with like the whole self-benching thing. I think he might have got benched and then took time away. I don't think Faker's like, yeah, you know what? I'm benching myself. Go ahead, get in there, closer. Like I don't think that happens. But I think when you mean all 4 major trophies, are you talking LCK Summer, LCK Spring, World Championship, and MSI? Is that what we're going with? I think that's what we're going with, because I know that Nuguri now is over in LPL. He was unable to win the LPL Spring split, but yeah, I guess there isn't a team that does that. Should we call that something? Should we call that like the League Grand Slam, your regional league, and then you win MSI? And is Rift Rivals in there? Do you need to win Rift Rivals? Also, like, what happens to the other trophies? NLB, which was the lower league if you got bumped out of the OGN championship earlier on in season 3 and 4 and 5, I think. So NLB was a cup. They also had Masters, where the teams had 2 teams combined into one, and that's where we saw like Najin, EM Fire rather than Najin Shield and Najin Sword. We had SKT, which was just straight SKT. That was the first time we saw SKT. Before it was SKT 1S and SKT 1K, which was the main roster. And you had KT, which had KT Rolster, which had KT Rolster Arrows and KT Rolster Bullets. Anyway, I'm just kind of rambling right now. I don't know which trophies you're talking about. I assume it's just going to be Spring, Summer, MSI, and Worlds. Sure, will be great. That'll be a super team, but hopefully, they'll be able to figure something out together after Faker moves on from his playing career. DeusVolt says, so true about the comms thing. League players talk way too much giving useless info. If you watch any FPS pros, they don't say shit unless it's vital information because they don't want to distract their teammates. Imagine a 5v5 situation in CSGO where both teams just start yelling, shoot the enemy. Like, WTF, man. Just shut the fuck up in team fights unless it's to say something is on cooldown. Yeah, a little bit different, just because in CSGO, each player doesn't have unique abilities. You have different guns, right? You have an AWP and rifles. That's all you really have. AWP, rifles, and then utility. But each champion that you play with does something different than the other team, which has 5 different champions that want to try and execute 2 different ways. So I think there's a lot more information that needs to be shared, but I think people have been so bad at sharing it under duress, it has turned into simply engaging so-and-so, and you can hear the comms, they're like, front line, front to back, Alistair, whatever. And, but I do think that there is a need for more complex comms in that. And that is where most of the practice comes from, right? Unfortunately in League, you cannot just fast forward in practice and scrims and just hop straight into team fighting. Hey, for the next 2 hours, we're gonna practice team fighting. Like, no, you gotta farm, get to a spot, and then you get to team fight. Otherwise, the team fights feel very disingenuous, right? There's always a situation where it's like, hey, we're at Dragon Pit, we're fighting over Dragon Pit, and you disengage because the waves are bad. You disengage because now you have a beeline to mid lane, and you can take 2 towers for that because you have Herald or Baron's up. Like, there's so many different things that kind of happen first, and there aren't the tools within practice, like the practice tool or scrims, to quickly and efficiently get to just fighting team fights, that one of the most effective ways, which isn't that effective at all, is to just scrim each other full games. The only thing that you do is like, all right, we're getting to 10 minutes and stop, right? And so that is what we were kind of hitting on earlier. That is the trend in North America. And so casting the light on how other regions have been practicing with no comms, with minimal ward vision, and then against your sister teams, you're able to just do whatever you want. You're not wasting time, but you are playing against weaker opponents. It's all just kind of like this very complex thing that people just haven't fully fleshed out what the best way is yet. So I hope that since my time helping out over at Golden Guardians, teams have gotten much more efficient with the practice. Friend of the show, the Nephilim4826, who comments all the time, says, guys, the upload is too late for me to watch at work and get paid for it. Homie, sounds like it's perfect time for you to watch live then. Appreciate you watching and commenting, liking and subscribing. You should be like the Nephilim, and then you can get yourself on the show. Let us know next week. Oh shit, no, because we don't have a show next week. Fuck.